that was just a little introduction to InsideView. I'm not advancing the slides here. There we go. Okay, I think we're in business now. So hopefully that gives you just a very brief idea of what InsideView is about. I am not the first person on the stage today to make the assertion that the world has changed. I think almost everybody who's been up here today has talked about how buyers are different than they were years ago. They've got access to unlimited amounts of information to do research on whatever product or service you're selling way before they ever talk to you or any of your salespeople. And so the challenge, of course, is then what is the role of the salesperson? If the buyers, as much as 70 or 80% of them, already have their mind made up before they ever engage with a salesperson. Basically what it means is that salespeople need to be way more relevant and way more in tune with their buyers. So the problem today is that we are so over-messaged. I mean, there's not a person in this room that doesn't get to the end of the day and feel like you've gotten all kinds of emails that you didn't want to look at. Maybe you've got social feeds coming in and coming at you from all direction, and then there's the phone. There are way too many messages coming at us for us to pay attention to anything that we don't really care about. And the things that we generally care about are things that come from people that we care about. So what we found out at InsideView is that the combination of having some amount of data about a prospect, so basic demographic information, basic business card information, an email address, phone number, that stuff is important if you're going to reach out. But it's certainly not differentiating, certainly isn't going to get you a more relevant or better business conversation. If you can start the conversation by adding in some insights, maybe it's something that you found in the company's annual report, maybe it was a news flash or an article, maybe it was a company presentation that they delivered. If you can get some sort of a timely insight, you're dramatically increasing your chances of having a successful communication or contact with that prospect. But the biggest differentiator is your relationship. All of us are programmed to want to respond to people that are referred by somebody that we know or we care about, especially if it's our boss. And so when you add the relationship element and you can get a warm introduction to a prospect and you add that to the insights and you add that to the basic business card data, now you have a compelling way to actually reach customers and prospects. So the problem is this. Most salespeople, most salespeople know that they need to have some information or some insights about their prospects. That's not rocket science. The challenge is when you have so much stuff that's being published today, and the social web is just filled with CEOs talking about their strategy or company presentations or all kinds of financial data. There's so much out there to absorb. How do you actually make sense of it all so that you can be more relevant and more effective? So we call it social intelligence. That's one of the topics. I think it's been discussed a little bit on stage already today. And we really see it as three different things. It's the ability to find opportunities and prospects that maybe your competitors will miss because they don't have a key alert or they don't have the right contact. It's very, very efficiently understanding the pain points and the business issues so that you can stop selling and start solving the problems that your prospects have. And it's about connecting through open social networks like LinkedIn, which has become a great standard for professional connectivity, but going beyond LinkedIn to actually look at more valuable connections that come in through just your Outlook contacts, or maybe your reference customers, or maybe it's where you went to school or places that you've worked previously. There's so many ways that we are connected, and if you have a way to pull all of that into one platform, you'll have a much greater advantage that even just LinkedIn by itself could provide. So that's what InsideView does. We've taken all of this information that comes from traditional data, social data, and connections and relationships, and brought it all into a very simple, easy to use window that sits either right within your workflow if it happens to be CRM, or through a browser just by logging in to our website. And the whole idea is that you get all of this information so that you can get through to the right person at the right time with a compelling message. And so now, rather than having me tell you more about all of that, I'd love to turn the stage over to Chuck Frydenborg, who is the Director of Corporate Sales for North America for Rosetta Stone, one of our wonderful customers. And he's got some real-world insights to share with you about how his team uses InsideView.
Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it. Okay, so I said we can't party like it's 1999. Actually, it's more like 1996. And I have had frequent occasions to regale the folks on my team regarding what the world was like when I started selling. Now, the picture on your right is the first one I tell them about, which is that when I sold in New York and New Jersey, I knew where every payphone in my territory was. And that bad boy was the Holy Grail, because you could pull up in your car, pull the cord in, and when it was like 15 degrees out and snowing, roll up the window so that you had the metal cord sticking in and you could do your business calls. But then things got better. Then I was told to bring my car over to a audio stereo shop around the corner from our office, and they put this metal thing in the floorboard of my car that looked like the stick shift of a school bus, and they slapped a phone on top of that, and that was progress. When I tell these stories to them, they're like, oh my God, that must have been so hard. After they say, oh my God, you must be like 80. And the funny thing is it was a lot easier back then. It wasn't harder. Because when you called your customers, fairly often, they actually picked up the phone. And we didn't have email either, but if, from a sales perspective, you put a thoughtful letter together, more often than not, you got a phone call or you got a letter back. Now, I can tell you now that I'm the recipient of these calls, that not only do I not take them if I don't recognize the phone number, because that's all I would do all day, but the emails don't even get to me. They hit my spam filter. So the challenge that today's salespeople have in contacting their prospective buyers is much more difficult. We can talk about technology and this or that, but the bottom line is business people do the things they need to do. Back then, as soon as they were going to embark on a decision-making process regarding a product or service, they had to talk to the salespeople. So they took your calls. Today, they don't need to do that anymore. They don't need you at that point in the process. This is from CEB. And what it talks about is they don't really want to bring you in as a supplier until they think they've got it all figured out. Right? We've heard numerous speakers come up today talking about all the sources of data that are available. And it's not just a website or downloading an annual report. It's being able to get customer insight, find out what companies stand by their products and services and which don't. Right? What products work effectively, which don't, in which type of environments. So they don't need you to talk to them about your product. They also don't want you to use the old kind of social selling approach. They don't want you to walk in and ask them, what keeps you up at night? You might as well just say, I'm unprepared. And I don't know what your business issues are. That's a real quick way to get booted out of somebody's office. You've got about 20 seconds to make them want to listen to you. And the only way you can do that is to move away from that old social selling methodology Let me sell to you and tell you about my product and all of our features and functionality. Then I will ask you about your business issues. And then after you educate me, I will take that square peg of your needs and fit it into the round hole of what I'm selling. And boy, aren't I doing a good job. It doesn't work. They need you to be a business advisor, not a salesperson. When you talk to them, you've got one shot to have them determine that it's worthy, it's a worthwhile exercise of their time to sit down with you. You need to understand their business, and not just what's on Hoover's. You need to understand, for my business, where the global locations are, where their customers are, what languages those customers or suppliers speak. You need to know that before you walk in the room. And if you don't, you're DOA. So let me tell you a little bit about the context of how we used InsideView, because at the end of the day, it does come down to solving a business problem. We have a very immature business issue that we're trying to address. And the reason for that is that although companies are rapidly understanding that language is an issue they need to solve, I've always used DuPont as a good example. 30 years ago, 75% of their revenues were generated in the US, 25% overseas. It's flip-flopped. Only 25% of their revenues are in the Americas, 75% are overseas. You got to have offices there, you got to hire people. You can't just show up and speak English and just assume everybody else is going to figure it out, right? So you have a business issue that companies are starting to realize needs to be addressed, but usually they're not doing it in a strategic fashion. It's very much a, oh shoot, I got an itch, let me scratch it. I've got 20 expats going to France next week on an assignment, so let me call Rosetta Stone and get 20 languages. Well, I can tell you with the targets that they have set up for our business, I'm not making my number 20 licenses at a time. It's just not happening. So we need to know more about their language learning issues than they do. We need to be able to ask those questions relative to the stuff I said before: customer language, supplier language, global locations, markets they're going after. Because unless we do that, we can never drive scale. And lastly, we've got to overcome that thing. And don't get me wrong, I love the brand, but I can't tell you how many times somebody has said to me, oh yeah, I know Rosetta Stone. Those commercials at 2 a.m. in the yellow boxes in the kiosks in the airports. Yeah, kinda, but not really. We sell a software as a service, annually renewable business solution that has management and administrative tracking capabilities, so people in learning and development can not only understand who's using the courses, but what progress they've made and what language skills that they can expect as a result of that work. So it's a completely different game from those beautiful yellow boxes. So anyway, so that's where InsideView came in. We needed help. Number one, we needed help to identify our buyers. You know, if I sold for, and I did, I grew up at Gartner. When I sold at Gartner, it was really easy. Call a CIO, call a CIO's direct reports. Piece of cake. We just had to make a list and start picking up the phone. Language learning, because of the lack of maturity of the business issue, is managed very differently by different companies in different verticals, right? Some companies now have chief diversity officers that focus on diversity and inclusion. In other places, it's a chief learning officer. It can be the VP of learning and development, it can be HR, it can be training, and in companies that really got their arms around it, it can actually be the person that heads up operations and runs the business unit where he or she has a language issue that they need to solve. So we needed something that wasn't Hoover's, that showed us the top 20 executives in the company that was probably like 2 years old, but could really help us find the people who we could help, and through that they could buy. We also needed information about their businesses. And again, this is more than just pulling down an annual report. Really understanding what their strategy was, what what their initiatives are, how fast they're growing globally versus domestically, and if they are, where, and figuring all that out. InsideView does all of that for us. They help us find the companies whose needs match our product. They help us find the people in the organization that need to buy, because it's very critical that we drive scale. Because again, you're not going to grow the way we need to, $5,000 at a time. We needed to be able to find multiple business centers and multiple advocates for our product within an enterprise. They do it in a bunch of different ways. My folks, my reps use it in many different ways, but at the end of the day, it's for that sales, it's that sales drive to figure out who the buyers are. I use MarketView. I literally have a programmed list of all of our key accounts. And if there's any news on those accounts, when I wake up in the morning, it's sitting there waiting for me in an email. We have had more than one occasion where we have found out about something that we viewed as an opportunity for us. The salesperson called, I contacted the client. The client didn't know about it yet. Think about the impression that can make. So what did this all mean for us? We rolled out InsideView on a trial basis at the end of 2011. And into 2012, we took it from just a handful of people based on the feedback we got to where I rolled it out for my entire inside channel. Long about September of last year, we were getting such traction from it that we rolled it out to the field. Last year, as an e-learning company, where companies are struggling right now to maintain revenues, let alone grow, we grew our business 22%. The way we did that, number one, was by increasing our win rates by 12%. And this wasn't just like, hey, this stuff ended up looking pretty good, so let's attribute it to InsideView. We actually had InsideView people come in, and we did data mining in Salesforce to figure out exactly what the data was and what the cause was. And what the reason for that growth was, or that improved performance in that area was, because we weren't wasting our time calling companies that didn't fit our core profile and contacting people that couldn't buy. We had a 22% increase in lead to opportunity conversion rates. I mean, that's just due to preparation. When you make that contact, be that advisor. If you're that advisor and you're not a salesperson, they will listen to you. The next metric is the one that I love the most, 33% increase in our average order value, or deal size. When I joined Rosetta Stone, we had one six-figure client. In 3 years, we've gone from 1 to 28. And within the last 6 months, we signed General Motors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Emerson Electric, John Deere, and I'm forgetting others, for $250,000 plus contracts. Marriott's another one. Each one of those is directly attributable to the different approach that we were empowered to take because of the information that we learned from InsideView. And then finally, as we're driving scale, we want to be the best sales organization that we can be. And we are hiring more experienced people, more polished people, people that have a proven record of success. And those people are very much about what toys are you giving me that will make me more effective. And we feel like InsideView does a great job in making us an employer of choice because of the efficiencies it's created. I think we're done. Any questions?